Alright, so this video is going to be just down and dirty, something to tell you how I'm going to be building a stand here for my Ork Bomber. And this can be done obviously with any model. But in this case, you can see here in the instructions that the actual bomber itself, or the fighter, comes with this base stand, and what this actually looks like in real life is something like this. And down below, I have the black plate here, and I'm just not really happy with something that's just black. I've put a lot of effort into the actual model itself, so I want to give something that's a really nice stand for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some scenery, and I've picked up a couple of these products here. They didn't come in the jars, but one is a finer gravel on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side is a little bit of a thicker gravel. So this one's called Buff Fine, and this one is Buff Medium. So what I did here was I actually picked up 2 jars, and then I emptied the contents of the bag into the jars, and then I cut out the label on the bag just so I knew what they were, and I taped them to the jars so when I want to refuel these in the future, I know what is what and where to get it. And you can see this hasn't been used yet, and I picked this up at Hobbytown USA, and this was for $4.99. So you get this for $4.99. Again, if you can find real rocks like this and don't have to go through the effort of buying them, then of course go ahead and do that. But I'm sure these are real rocks. But anyways, okay, so over here, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use some Scenic cement, and that I picked up over here, and this still has a price tag on it. This was $10, $9.99, okay, right here. And then I picked this up, I probably have a couple of these at home, but I picked this up exclusively for this glue, and this is $5. So I'm going to spray this on. So what I'm going to do in this instance here, I'm going to spray this down, apply some of the rocks that I have, and then I'll probably spray another coat and apply another layer, and we'll see where that goes. One thing I wanted to mention to you too, that if you're looking for good bases and you want to get something a little bit more larger, sometimes if you're trying to do sceneries and whatnot, you don't have the size base that you wish you had. And I know that you can go to a local hobby store and pick up some. And to save some money, actually, what I would recommend you do is go visit your local sign company. The people that make signs for restroom signs in hotels, hospitals, etc. And ask them if they have any waste in acrylic plaques. And you'd be surprised. I got these for free from a local sign company. And you can see over here, they just they let me go through a couple of things and just grab what I wanted. I even got larger pieces, something like this, so you can drill some holes in that and do what you want. And of course you know that you can get your posts, etc. at your local hobby stores for next to nothing. And so it's a great way to experiment, do some things along the way, paint some things, get a bigger base, create more of a scenery for your posts, etc. Even if you had to go in there and say, hey, look, I'll give you $25 for some scrap if you have any, they'll give it to you. Usually they use these for samples and color matching and stuff like that. So they've got a pile of that back there, so ask them about it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start the process of spraying this component here. I'll get this in my little work area, and I'll start spraying this and applying the rocks, and we'll see what happens. All right. Okay, so this is my work area, and let's talk about what we see here. Basically, I put everything in this little box, so nothing gets all over the place. And I use this mostly for airbrushing. But in this case here, what I have is I have the glue, the spray, and I've put about 4.5 ounces in there, so that's right about this much. And then I have the first layer of rocks. This is going to be the Buff Fine that's here. And then I have the actual stand itself, and I'm actually going to use a Glad little Tupperware component here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that to collect the rocks after I put them on, so I can reuse whatever I possibly can. So I'll spray this by itself outside, and then when I'm ready to apply the rocks, I'll put that in here, sprinkle them on with a spoon, and then let those set and dry, and then put the rest back in the jar over here, and then do a round 2, round 3, maybe whatever. So I can't do this with 2 hands, and I don't have a tripod with me back here in the garage, unfortunately. But I'm just going to go ahead and get started, and then I'll show you the first round results now that I've illustrated what it is that I'm going to do. Alright, so I went ahead and I finished the stand, and there is no intermittent steps in this process. I just went ahead and completed this, and now I'm filming it, and I'm going to do a little bit of a recap on what I did, because I added some additional things since the beginning of the video. So first of all, let's take a look at what's here. Is that it's a little bit bright, but at the same time, to let you know that I put a first coat of the Scenic cement on the bottom of the base, and then I applied the fine rocks, the smaller rocks at the bottom. And then I went ahead and I applied a second coat, and on top of that I applied some of the larger rocks, just to give it some contrast and some texture. Okay, some healthy texture there. Now I also went out to Michael's, and for $2.99 I picked up a couple of these guys here. Okay, you can get a little bag of those, and I wanted to give some texture, some color into this, so it looks a little bit more like a desert ground. It's not just so much just rocks. And I might add some more. I'm not exactly sure what I want to do at this point. Just leave it like this, or just let it go. One of the things that I went ahead and did afterwards as well is that I kind of had a regret that I didn't paint the base. So the base itself was all black, and you know, I decided, well, you know what can I do after the fact? And I also had to fill in some areas over here. So I pulled out some of the pigment that I used on the Millennium Falcon project, and this is the Vallejo pigments. This is particularly, this specific one is going to be the light sienna pigment. And so I dusted around the base over here. But one thing that also helped out with, I'll show you a good example over here, is that it filled in some of the areas that were around here where I didn't get some rocks on the corner, so I was able to put some on there that look a little bit more like dirt. Now I may go back and just apply a little bit more rocks on there just to make it, you know, even or best I can. But then another thing it really helped out with was I went ahead and I dusted just a bunch over here in certain areas. So as I pull back on this, you can see a lot of the lighter areas are the natural rocks themselves, but where you see darker areas, it's given a little bit of a contrast in the bed here, is that's actually the pigments. So I went around and I sort of just applied it where I thought it would go, look best. So you can see here, these rocks are a little bit more exposed, while these ones are a little bit covered up with some of those pigments. So again, it gives it a nice natural look, a nice natural feel to it. So all in all, I'm really pleased with this. If you're looking to do something like this, again, now with the pigments included, and these were $4.25, so add that with the original bill of materials. You're probably talking about $30, $35 worth of materials in total, but keep in mind that you have plenty to use on so many other projects. So in this case down here, you can see that I have, you know, this much left of my my fine buff over here, and then I also have you know, another jar with just as much in there as well for future use. So yeah, I highly recommend this process. It really does bring your bases to life. If you have any work that you want to showcase, feel free to include it in the comments down below, and share some of your work and some of your techniques. If you have any YouTube videos and channels that you want to sort of link to in that's perfectly fine as well. I always encourage that. And also, if you have any questions, if there's something I didn't cover in here, or you just want to get some clarification on something, I always answer questions. Please feel free to leave them in the comments down below. And I appreciate you taking the time to watch. Hopefully this helped out, and I'll be back in another video to show you something else. Thanks very much for watching, and take care.